Hey guys, Andre from High Performance Academy. Welcome along to another one of our webinars slash pre-shows. Now today in our webinar we're going to be discussing some of the subtle changes that you can make when you're building a performance engine that are going to help get a nice solid supply of oil to all of the parts where you need that oil, none of the parts that you don't want the oil. Before we get into that though, just a few things that have been going on over the last week. And we had a pretty busy schedule of racing planned for this weekend. We had rounds 3 and 4 of the Highlands Sprint Series, which is our local sprint race series. This is run on a shortened version of our local track, Highlands Motorsport Park, and as its name implies, there's a series of relatively short 6-lap sprint races. So we had the opportunity for, I think, the first time ever that we had 2 cars going. We had our black 86 with the V8 in it going, and we also had our racecraft car with the turbo FA20 going. So we're pretty excited about racing both cars. Unfortunately, that also wasn't to be. On Friday before the racing, I headed to the track with our black car to go and bed some brakes. And at this point, if you've been following us, you'll know that we've been having a few axle dramas. We have a set of Driveshaft Shop 1000 horsepower axles for the rear of it. Should be more than ample given the fact that we're only making about 450 horse. For whatever reason, we are still digging into this. Driveshaft Shop supplied us axles that were about 25 millimeters too short. Hence, through our race vlog series, which we'll talk about in a minute, we kind of had continual problems with the axles popping out of the LSD center, and when that happens, it ends up leaking oil out past the seals. Basically, not a real good look. So, at our last round at our last round at Ruapuna in Christchurch, we swapped back to the stock axles after a day of testing. Our Driveshaft Shop axles popped out. We didn't really want to risk that for the race, so we ran back to our stock axles, and as you'll know if you were watching, we ended up breaking one with about 6 minutes to run, so really frustrating. We've been working with Driveshaft Shop now for about 3 weeks to try and get them to send us axles that are the right length, and it looked like we weren't going to have those until probably today or tomorrow, so we rebuilt a couple of spare stock axles, put them in the car, headed to Highlands, thinking that that would be okay. After all, they had done around about 70 or 80 laps in testing previously. We'd done a whole race as well previously at Teretonga on stock axles, so we thought they should be okay. However, after bedding the brakes in on my second sort of semi-hard lap, ended up breaking an axle, so pretty frustrating. Fortunately, at exactly the same time I was breaking the axle, Driveshaft Shop came through and sent us the right axles or the right bars to rebuild. So Brandon got pretty busy with that in the afternoon, had the car all ready to go. So Ben headed to the track Saturday morning, went out and did a practice session, and about 5 laps in, I got a message. If we jump over to my laptop screen, this is what I was faced with, which doesn't look particularly promising. Things got a little bit worse as well. Obviously, car is no longer looking quite as pristine as it was. So what actually happened was that on one of Ben's laps, coming around the right-hand corner, basically touched the brakes to turn into the corner, and the right front lower control arm failed. We're still getting to the bottom of what actually caused that. So in hindsight, could have been much worse. It was a right hand corner, and it was the right hand lower control arm that actually failed. So if I mean the left hand side, probably would have been straight into the wall at pretty high speed. Ben managed to get the car off to the infield with essentially very little damage, as you can see in this photo. The front right fender is no longer looking quite so pristine. We've rinsed near new Michelin slick, which we're not too stoked about. Front bumper didn't come out of the showroom floor looking like that, and Brandon's hard work with the splitter at the front is also damaged, so we've got a little bit of work ahead of us. Now what that sort of looks like once we got underneath, this is the rod end for the caster arm, which runs forward in this car. Obviously you can see that's sheared off. We've also got the adjuster. This actually goes to the inside of the car. A couple of bits I'll actually show you probably better than photos in a second. So that's broken the rod end off, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I'll just grab a couple of these components out and we'll see what we've got to deal with. So this is our lower control arm. We'll head up to our overhead shot, and we'll sort of see how this sits in the car. So this is the outer basically spigot that goes through the hub, lower lower ball joint, and this is where the rod end should be that goes to the inner chassis pickup. I've got this actually around the wrong way. It sort of sits more like that, and we've got a caster arm that runs forward to the front chassis mount, so I guess that kind of goes like that. So we've kind of been working through this. This is an SPL Parts suspension arm that we've got, and I need to sort of say straight up here, we don't actually know what the cause of failure has been right now. We are working through this with SPL, and they've been great to deal with, which is always good, because obviously this is a pretty serious failure, and it could have easily ended up much more serious than it was. The issue that we've got there is that we've got these arms in both cars. Now, the reason that we put the SPL Parts arms into our racecraft car was when we bought the black V8 car, these arms were already fitted to them, to the car. We really liked the design, we really liked the quality of the parts, and the easy adjustability was probably one of the biggest sales points for us. So we decided we would make better sense to have the same parts in both cars. We kind of got a bit of redundancy if something goes wrong. So yeah, those arms also, I should mention, have probably done upwards of 500 laps since we've owned the car. So they've had a pretty hard life, but still not something we'd expect to fail. Moving forward, so obviously that was Ben's day done and dusted. On Sunday, I headed down to the track with our racecraft car, and again, we'll head across to my laptop screen. Dawn fine and clear, looking forward to a good day of racing. The way the classes are run, there's 4 classes run in 2 groups. So I've got basically 2 classes for each group that actually are on track at the same time. So I sort of purposely positioned myself so that I was at the fast end of the second fastest group, and basically they run with a class cutoff. So what this meant for my purposes was 1 minute 20.0. If I ran any faster than that, I moved into the fastest group. If in racing conditions you ended up going faster than your breakout, you ended up with a 50-point penalty. So I was trying to walk a tightrope there, because the car probably is marginally faster than 1 minute 20 on a flying lap or a qualifier. However, in race conditions, I thought I'd be there or thereabouts. So after qualifying, it's pretty stoked that I was exactly where I needed to be. As you can see there on the laptop screen, qualified number 1 in class 2 with a 120.20, so right on the absolute cusp, and a nice little margin back to our second place in that class. However, again, things weren't quite to be. On the qualifying session, I didn't feel that the car was quite right. It started feeling a little bit funny, wasn't quite turning into corners properly. So, of course, given that we've got the same suspension arms in the bottom and the underside of that car, took a look at those and wasn't too stoked with what I saw. And this is what we've got here. So you can see that the inner ball joint there, or inner rod end, I should say, again, severely bent. Basically, we're looking at the same kind of failure mode as what we saw in the black car. Just fortunately, in this instance, I got onto it a little bit earlier and managed to pick it up before it actually failed. Obviously, Ben had no idea that this was even a problem, so a little bit of forewarning there. I knew what I was looking for. So kind of without trying to get too engineering on this, just what we sort of deduce is happening there, and this is not a really great photo to sort of show what's happening, but let's try and extend things a little bit. So this caster arm sort of comes out here to another rod end. Obviously, we've got the wheel out here, and what we're seeing is that under heavy braking, we're putting a huge amount of braking force that sort of essentially goes this way, and what we believe is happening, it sort of makes pretty simple logical sense here, is that we're essentially pivoting around this point here. I'll mention that point that I've just labeled, that actually isn't a rod end. There is no bearing there, it's a fixed joint, so that is important to mention, otherwise we'd definitely be pivoting around there. And of course, the result is that we've got a bending force going through this rod end on the inside here. So if anyone who does know a little bit about rod ends, incredibly strong in tension and compression, which is how they're designed to be used, not really designed to have any bending load applied to them. So this is worrying. As I say, we're working through this with SPL at the moment to get to the bottom of it. I should probably mention here that the arms have been in our racecraft car for a very short amount of time. We've probably done no more than about 30 laps since those arms have been fitted, about probably 15 of those were on Sunday when they did fail. And the racecraft, the V8 powered car, as I mentioned though, probably done upwards of 500 laps. So really quite unusual. For those who are wondering as well, no, we didn't hit anything other than running the usual ripple strips, which, let's be honest, you're going to do in a race car. So not ideal, pretty unhappy end to the weekend, although I guess it could be worse. At least I picked up on those bent rod ends before I actually ended up having one fail. My luck's not usually as good as Ben's, so rather than ending up on the grass on the infield, I would have probably ended up speared into the wall at high speed, which no one really wants. So the car lives to fight another day, but obviously we need to get some solutions to what is going on there. Now, I'll just mention as well, again, for those who have been following us, you'll know that our racecraft car with the turbocharged FA20 engine in it, we are a little bit light on gearbox strength. Once we started pushing the engine a little bit more in terms of raising the boost after we fitted our steel con rods, we ended up pretty quickly having fourth gear fail. And then with a replacement gearbox, thinking that it may have just been the age of the box, we had a fourth gear fail very quickly again after that. So we're obviously right on the cusp of what that gearbox is capable of. I mentioned that that car was turbocharged probably within about the first 12 months of us owning it. So it has had a fair beating. The car isn't a daily driver. It's basically only ever driven on the racetrack or thrashed on the dyno. So it has had a fairly hard life, and it's probably a wonder that it stood up to the abuse it's had. However, we obviously knew we were at that point after we raised the boost and started having these gearbox failures happen quite quickly, and it's always been fourth gear. PPG over in Australia have just recently released a replacement gear set. I haven't really looked into that in too much detail, but of interest, they noted that the factory design had a weakness incorporating fourth gear. So that's the current problem we're having. So unfortunately, with the Toyota 86, there's not actually a lot of options in terms of cost-effective gearbox upgrades. We don't really want to go to a sequential in that car if we can avoid it. We'd like to fit something like a Toyota R154. We've got one of those sitting on the workshop floor with no home. That'd probably be pretty well perfect, or something like a T56, maybe the Nissan 350Z gearbox. So while we're sort of looking at options, basically coming up blank there, we decided, well, we want to go racing anyway, and I wanted to protect fourth gear. So this is one of the areas where we can use a little bit of intelligent ECU mapping to help us try and make the most of a bad situation. So if we jump across to my laptop screen for a moment, this is just some I2 data from Sunday's racing, and the important ones are down the bottom here. In green, we've got our boost aim. So this is gauge pressure in kPa, so 80 kPa, around about 12 psi is my maximum boost target. The purple is our actual boost pressure. Actually, what I probably should do here is just add a little bit of context to this. So let's just add our gear into that so you actually know what's going on. That'll make a little bit more sense. So now we've got gear down here as well. So what I did in this case, we are currently in third gear, within about 2 kPa of our boost target, 78 kPa. Then what I've done here, as I change into fourth gear, I basically trimmed 50% out of our boost target. So our boost target goes down to 45 kPa there. You can actually see the boost does overboost slightly. The reason for this is that we're on the wastegate spring pressure at that point, so I can't actually drop the boost any lower than we've got. Then I change up into fifth gear, and again, we're back up to our boost target at 80 kPa. So it's a pretty unusual feeling from the driver's seat. The car goes really well. Obviously, first, second, and third gear, you pull fourth gear and it feels like you hit a brick wall. Pull through to the shift point in fourth gear, and once you get back into fifth, it's a rocket ship again. We'll be happy to deal with that until the point where we can get a stronger gearbox into it and something that's going to be a bit reliable. So again, just one of the uses of modern ECUs to get the most out of your components that you've got. So the other thing I wanted to show you is our Haltech IC7 Dash. So we'll just jump to our overhead shot here. And this is a dash. If you've been following Haltech recently, they have just released it. I'm not actually sure if it's shipping yet. We were lucky enough to get given a pre-release unit to deal with or to have a look at, to put through its paces. So I've just got this hooked up to our Subaru STi, which in lieu of a simulator is currently actually idling out in the workshop, just so we can show you some actual data. So 7-inch full color display. Interestingly, this has also got some buttons on it, so it's you've got the ability to actually select the pages that you want to view. You've got the ability to basically set this up with a range of different data, a range of different displays, very configurable by the end user. Now, the reason as well that Haltech have gone with the buttons on the side, we've been questioned about this a little bit, versus being touchscreen, is they had a lot of feedback during their initial consultation with customers and dealers that people with touchscreens kind of don't like the fact that the touchscreen ends up with fingerprints all over it, which is a valid point. I've seen that myself. So something that you don't really want to be having problems with. Interesting, we've just had a coolant temperature high warning come up. So it kind of does just about everything you would expect from a modern dash display. I will just mention that this is kind of like a street dash display unit, so it isn't a logging unit. It doesn't have the ability to do anything like GPS lap timing, and Haltech have done this purposely to try and get the cost point down. I should have had this information, but off the top of my head, I think these come in at around about $880 US dollars, around about 1,450 New Zealand dollars as well. So fairly cost effective, fairly well priced, very easy to connect as well. Literally, this is plug and play with the Elite range of ECUs. All I've done, if we just swap this over to the back, it's got an AMP Superseal connector, pretty common connector, same as what Haltech use with their ECUs. This is terminated in a 4-pin DTM connector, and it comes with an adapter that allows you, I think it's 2 meters long, allows you to plug it straight into the Haltech CAN bus. It's got power, earth, CAN high and CAN low. Basically plug it in and you're up and running. So really, really easy to use. There is also a full color LED shift light array across the top. Again, exactly what you expect, all user configurable. So we'll be making a little video about that hopefully in the next week or so in a little bit more detail, but just thought I would share that and give you a bit of a snippet as to what that's going to be like if you haven't seen it. Now, for those who have been asking as well, I've been busy today up until this point with our webinar, starting the filming of our Megasquirt MS3 Pro Worked Example. So again, we'll jump across to my laptop screen. This is Taz's MX5. Taz, if you do not know him, is our customer services guru. So a lot of you probably will have dealt with him via email. So this is Taz's own project cut. Had the MS3 Pro in it for a fair while now, but we've just been struggling to make time to actually film this worked example, so really excited to get that out there. Even if the current power level out of that car, as you can see, a whopping 101 horsepower at the wheels, even if that power level isn't really stretching our mainline Pro Hub dyno to its limit, given that in two-wheel drive form our Pro Hub dyno should be able to support somewhere around about 2,500 horsepower, but the little MX5 should be an absolute ball of fun to drive as well. So again, hoping that worked example should be filmed, edited and added into our courses, maybe a little bit optimistic, but before the end of the year, so stay tuned for that. Now, our latest video releases, I'm actually going to really briefly cover two of these today. So again, we'll head across to my laptop screen. This is one that we're really excited about, even if it's a bit of a departure from our usual. We have been doing a vlog series on our endurance racing series, and this is a bit more informal, a bit more light-hearted. There's a little bit more banter involved. You get to meet the rest of the team in these videos as well. So we'd love it if you could check that video out. Give us some feedback on it. Let us know in the comments what you like, what you don't like. Do you want to see more of these? Not quite so smooth produced and technical in its nature, but it does really show you what a typical race weekend is like. And if you're spectating at a race meeting, just about regardless of what level of motorsport you're watching, you might think that everything's going absolutely smoothly and it's plain sailing for all of the competitors. You're probably going to find that up and down the pit garages, everyone's struggling with their own set of issues. So this gives you some actual insight into what goes on behind the scenes. So you'll find that on our YouTube channel, of course, and our current Tuesday release. It's Tuesday here in New Zealand. While we were at World Time Attack this year, year. This is a car that actually jumped out at us last year as well. Didn't get a chance to talk to the owner, but it is an R32 Nissan Skyline. So GTST, not a GTR. Don't let the GTR guards fool you. But it's had probably what I'd consider one of the more unique engine swaps I've seen in an R32 chassis, which is the Ford Barra engine. This is making 975 horsepower currently. No slouch at all. And we talked to Dennis from Grim Performance about the impetus behind such an engine swap, why they went to the trouble of doing so, and talk about the ins and outs of the Barra engine. So if you are interested in Skylines, Barra engines, or weird engine swaps, go and check that out. Alright, and lastly, before we get into our webinar, just another reminder that our VIP package deal is still running. I've only got about 12 days left for this to run. For those who aren't aware of what a VIP package deal is, we have done this a couple of times in the past. Basically, this is a one-time fee that you'll pay to get full access to every single course that High Performance Academy currently offers. You'll never pay for another course in your life. You're going to get free priority access to every course that we bring out in the future. You're also going to get lifetime access to our members only forum. You'll get lifetime access to our members webinars and our archive of existing webinar content. So that package deal, it is $1,597 US, and we do know that that is a chunk of cash to come up with in one hit. You can, however, break that down using our payment plan. You can see you got two options there. You can pay for it outright or split your payments up. We've given the option there to split that down into as many as 16 weekly payments. If you do that, obviously simple math brings it down to just a touch under $100 US a week. So we think that for the value this represents, it's really amazing value. And also, if you use our payment plan, you get instant access to all of the courses. You don't need to wait before you start learning. Just quickly, I'll get the team to put a link in the chat you can follow if you want to learn more. You're going to get access to all of our courses at the moment. As I mentioned, there's about $2,400 US worth of existing course material. We've got around about the same amount, about $2,400 US worth of upcoming courses that we've already got planned. So you're going to get those without paying another cent. You're also going to get VIP membership to our new Racecraft sister company. So we conservatively estimate that right now at $1,295 US. Racecraft has only just launched. We've got one course right now. We've got some full-time staff coming on board next year to really pump out some course content, and we're really excited about the content that we've got coming up. That entire package deal, oh, and I should mention you're going to get a t-shirt and sticker package so that you can show your affiliation and support to the HPA slash Racecraft brand. So total value there, depending on how much you use of our gold membership, conservatively over $7,000 US worth of value for just $1,597 US. Now, this has been going really, really fast, so we're down to just 37 of those packages left. So if you are on the fence, you are interested, jump in quickly. We would not want you to miss out. Alright, that brings us to the end of our pre-show there, so just give me a few moments and we'll get started with our webinar. If you like that video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already a subscriber, make sure you're subscribed. We release a new video every week. And if you like free stuff, we've got a great deal for you. Click the link in the description to claim your free spot to our next live lesson.